Welcome students and parents. This is just a short video to introduce myself and the course. The email that came with this covers a good bit of the material, so I'm going to go pretty quick. All right, this is my 10th year at Capel. A good portion of that has been teaching geometry. It's one of my favorite courses to teach. I have my undergraduate in math. I was in the military prior, and you might see my wife, Jeannie, substituting up at the school a bit this year because we're now empty nesters. Geometry is, again, by far my favorite course. And it's not just about the mathematics. It's pursuing the logic. It's pursuing defend your answer, why things work, how to do a convincing argument for the most part. And that's going to take place largely in the Euclidean geometry part, where it's two-dimensional, the classic 2,000-year-old mathematics, more than 2,000 years, of proving why a triangle behaves a certain way, or a circle, or other two-dimensional objects. A lot of proofs, a lot of defending your arguments, very much the classic mathematics. We're going to move into analytical because that's going to be the majority of your math studies for your life, basically, where we're going to do algebra with pictures. A lot of Cartesian work, integrating trigonometry, so on. And of course, algebra will be a critical component throughout the entire year, not just to refresh your algebra, but to actually make you better. And in the GT course, we do that quite a bit. You're going to walk out of this course well prepared for anything that Capel is going to throw at you in the future. GT versus honors, you already know some of this because you've been in the GT program. One of the biggest benefits is you're going to have the smaller class sizes. My honors classes are over 30. Whereas right now my GTs are looking in the low 20s or at 20. But it's a completely different course. And now if I had my way, I would teach honors a lot of the way I would teach GT. We use the Discovering Geometry book, which is quite a bit different than the Larson book. We do a lot of investigation and discovery, which means construction and definition and so on. Unlike some of the other courses where they just throw out the formula or the definition for you to use and you apply that in a various problem with algebra with pictures or whatever, we investigate why that definition works. We have to prove a formula before we're using it, so on. And again, you're going to do a lot of constructions, and I'll talk about that again shortly. They're both level 2 on the grading scale. GT has a reputation for being more difficult, more challenging than honors. We definitely do a lot more difficult work, but I'm going to make sure there's parity on the grading. So if I think our test's a little bit too hard, I'll make sure that it's compensated so you're not being penalized for being in a GT class knowing more than your competition in the high school, but maybe you might get a 91 on a test, whereas your friends in honors are getting 97s. I'm going to make sure that parity is there. All right, here's a quick glance at your first few weeks of school. We get started right away, and you're going to learn a bit about me. And I'm a pretty serious person. When I show up to work, we work. And the first day of school is we're going to work. Now I have to get some administration stuff out of the way, like getting the books out and things like that. But we're going to start off on the fundamentals, and this also illustrates some of the differences between pre-AP and GT, because we really integrate the definitions on why things happen. I'm just not going to talk about, okay, here's a triangle that's 180 degrees, sum of the angles. We're going to explore why that is, and in order to do that, we have to explore circles and some other components that honors may not talk about until April or May. So we will be quite a bit different. It's going to have a very different feel than pre-AP. The two books, Discovering Geometry is our primary textbook. I have hard copies in the classroom, and I barely have enough right now. If I get a few more students, I'm going to have a slight problem of not having enough books. Here's the kicker. The district, like many districts throughout the state of Texas, is having money problems. So they declined to continue to fund Discovering Geometry and just went with one geometry book. And that is the Big Ideas book. It's a pretty good book for on level. I like it for, if I were teaching on level, that would be my favorite book. But for pre-AP, it was inadequate, and for GT, it's woefully inadequate. I think I've only used last year 6 or 7 problems out of the entire textbook. That was of interest for a GT level course. And even when I taught pre-AP, maybe a dozen problems out of it. There's no online resources for discovering geometry. That was discontinued because it cost some money. But that's okay. I have plenty of my own resources, and I get lots of stuff from other, I basically steal from other schools too. But we have a pretty darn good course. A lot of credit goes to Dana Deloach, one of our pre-calc teachers who started this about 10, 15 years ago. All right, so moving on. We're going to use Schoology. Right now, the district hasn't populated the classes, so I haven't seen any of that, but Schoology is going to be somewhat important because we're now teaching 6 out of 7. Our math teachers are going to be very, very busy. Because we're going to have less time and more students, we're going to depend on Schoology to help us manage some of our online homework checks and things like that. I'll have all my notes. I'm very good at putting notes up and online resources for you to use. So that's going to be a daily thing that you're going to check into. Again, as you get to know me, you're going to know that integrity is a huge part of my philosophy for academics. And it's not the integrity that I'm referring to, which of course is still important, of when you're taking a test or a quiz and peeking over to your next door neighbor and say, hey man, I can't figure out number 3. Let me take a peek and see what they got. And that's bad, of course, but the integrity I'm talking about is far more important. It is about how you approach your homework, about not quitting too early on a tough problem and going to your friend and say, how do I do number 7? Really, really understand it's your daily work that is vital in mathematics. It's a marathon approach. Good note taking. Studies out of colleges, recent studies said that those who do pencil to paper note taking outperform those who take notes on the iPad. So that's something for you to consider. I'm not going to babysit you. If you want to take notes on the iPad, take notes on the iPad. You're in high school now. However you feel comfortable. But the students, my top performers in the past years, the ones who have maxed out the class, have come in at the end of the year and said, Mr. Fields, look at my thick notebook of all my notes. They take hard copy notes on pencil and paper. Okay. Supplies. You're going to want a good compass. I grade with a very quality compass. We're going to do a lot of constructions. I strongly recommend something like this right here. You can order it from Amazon. Don't get those cheap plastic compasses at Walmart or wherever. They just fall apart after a little while. You want a quality compass. We're going to do serious constructions. I have some in the classroom that are adequate, but again, if you're off by a degree or two, it could be a couple of points on the test. The supplies written here in blue are always appreciated, but of course they're not mandatory. If we just run out of batteries, we run out of batteries. And the calculator is optional. I have enough for a class set for my GT geometry class, but not enough for my honors algebra 2. We're going to be well short on that course. But you probably want to get one anyway for algebra 2 and pre-cal. And I want to invite all the parents to the open house on the 29th of August. I look forward to meeting as many people as possible. I have a memory of a goldfish, so I may or may not remember everybody's name in the first or who showed. But please try and catch that event. And again, it's going to be a very busy year for the teachers. We have very limited time during the day now, and a lot of students. So please try and meet and greet on that evening, and I look forward to seeing y'all on the students on the first day of school and parents on the 29th. Alrighty, I'll get this uploaded.